Hello, I'm Brian C. Mears, and this is Expressions of Light Language. Today in our chakra series, we're going to dive into the throat chakra. We've already covered the root, the sacral, the solar plexus, the heart, and now we're getting into the throat. This is I speak. And it's not just the physical aspect of speaking. It's not just the vocal cords and the sound that reverberates out that I'm trying to capture on the mic that I continue to have challenges with. It's actually the communication internally as well. What is there for us to see as a soul who's chosen it to be incarnate during this time in this place? What's actually there for us to be able to articulate to others and to ourselves, our deeper knowings, the truths that we hold based upon the perspectives and the lessons that we've learned while we've been in this life and other lives as well. What's actually there? I have a lot of tension within my throat. I always have, at least as far as I can remember. Right? The challenges that are there are from the space that I've been told I have a very sharp tongue. And so I always moderate the words that I'm trying to say so that I'm not harming others. And on occasion, I end up harming myself by not actually saying what's there for me. It's a lesson that I'm learning, and I'm willing to share that with you as well. Because ultimately, in the words that I feel I'm not able to share, if that causes harm to me, right, then I have to heal some of those pieces as well. We all want to be heard on some level. We all want to be understood on another level. Right? And part of that is listening to ourselves and how we choose to show up in the world that's around us. Right? Do we need to go screaming our peace, our truth from every single mountaintop? No. Is it worth it for us to hold on to our own truth and use that as our own guiding light to be able to help navigate through the shifts and challenges of our chaotic world? Absolutely. Right? On top of the voice box, we also have the thyroid. Right? Thyroid is essentially the thermostat of the body, and it's deeply impacted whenever we end up with some form of stress. Life-threatening stress, lifestyle stress, doesn't matter. Stress causes a cortisol release. The cortisol coursing through our system inhibits the way that the thyroid is working. Simply because if you're running from a bear, as our ancestors had to be able to survive in an acute life-threatening situation, we don't care if we're too hot or we're too cold. We're not focused on the repair. We're not focusing on digesting what's around us. We're focused on keep me alive in this moment. And the thyroid trying to regulate that temperature for us, no matter what the conditions are, doesn't matter in life-threatening stress. Modern society is incredibly stressful, right? The stories on the news today, incredibly stressful, right? The stories that we have with the holidays coming up can also be stressful depending upon how somebody chooses to look at it. Right? So we're looking at communicating not only with our voice, but also with our body, as we're being able to give it the encouraging it to be able to communicate what's really there for us. We want to be at a nice even temperature so that all of our enzymes and all of our biology is able to do the job that we're asking of it to do. We also have to have that internal dialogue. A large portion of modern human stress, from what I've been able to determine as my time as an acupuncturist, is based on the voice that we have inside of our head. Most people are hypercritical of themselves. They're always cutting themselves down, always second guessing and double judging themselves for whatever they've actually gone through. Some misstep that they made, something they said that they are afraid that it hurts somebody else's feelings. And it all comes in from the space that this internal voice that we have believes that we're not worthy of being kind to. We certainly know our potential of what we could have done, but the potential is it always taking into account what we actually have the energy to do. So we're trying to be able to communicate differently within the system as part of what we need to work with the throat chakra. It's not just what I speak to others and it needs to be harmonious. No, I can put down boundaries. No is a very strong word and a complete sentence. Right? Expressing boundaries, expressing what we're wanting to receive differently in our world, both with others. If we don't ask, we're very unlikely to receive, and also speaking within ourselves what we need to shift, what we need to change within ourselves, within our perception, within our own cells, to be able to have a different experience on this planet. See, if the internal voice is always cutting us down, then the brain thinks that we're not worth anything. If we were to take that internal dialogue and put it as an exterior personality, my guess is most people aren't going to be friends with that personality. Somebody who's always hypercritical of us, somebody who's always telling us that we're screwed up, that we did something wrong, that we're dumb, whatever the story is. So if we wouldn't let somebody else into our world who speaks who speaks at us, to us, with us, in that same tone of being hypercritical, if that person's not allowed in our world exterior, then it shouldn't be allowed in our world interior. Right? Constructive criticism absolutely has a time and a place. Darn it, I screwed up again. How do I help myself to learn the lesson so this doesn't happen again? How do I encourage myself to remember this from a positive and loving experience so that I can heal the wounds instead of continuing to push on the festering wound and making it hurt just a little bit more? So maybe this time, if I hurt myself enough, maybe this time I'll learn the lesson. That's not how wounds heal. Anybody that's fallen off of a bicycle and scuffed a knee knows that if you pick at that wound, it's never going to heal. It's going to continue to bleed. It's going to have scar tissue. It's going to be there as a permanent reminder of the choices that we've made. In that case, harming the body. If we have a constant dialogue of being hypercritical of ourselves, of telling ourselves that we're not worth it, that we're dumb, that somehow we should feel guilty or shameful, or fueling our anger or our sadness or our grief, our anger, then healing doesn't occur. Healing comes from being gentle, to being kind and loving. With a scuffed knee, we clean the wound. Yeah, that hurts. Done that a couple of times. But then we have to be gentle with it and give it the liniments and the patience that is required for it to be able to heal. As a human, we're no different. Our bodies heal in a certain tone, and so does the mind, the emotions, and the soul. Right? We've heard the saying that time heals all wounds. That's actually incorrect. It's actually when the mind receives the message that we're safe enough that we can take a deep breath, safe enough that we're no longer in danger, that healing actually begins to occur. According to psychology, emotions only last 60 to 90 seconds. The rest of the experience of having an emotion is the mind trying to hold on to and figure out what the heck just happened. Because it's such a frequency shift. When we're going along, bebopping through our day, somebody cuts us off in traffic. Yep, we've got the fear, we've got the adrenaline, make sure we're safe in the moment, and then the anger and the actually rage that comes through. Right? Anger acting upon fear. Screaming, yelling, flipping the middle finger, whatever it is that somebody does in the moment of being cut off in traffic. If we hold on to that, it becomes pathologic. If we can let it go and wish our fellow traveler on the road safe travels to wherever their journey is for them and anybody else who happens to be in their way, there's healing that happens in that moment. Yeah, we got to burn through the adrenaline. We got to let the cortisol course through our system, but it's taking back control of that internal voice. Right? We don't know their story. We know our story. So our story requires our love, our gratitude, our tenderness, our understanding, our compassion, our grace, our forgiveness. Right? Humans learn by making mistakes and learning the lessons out of the thing that we didn't want to experience. How do you make a human stronger? You put them in a situation where they feel weak, like the gym. How do you make somebody smarter? You put them in a situation that makes them feel dumb, like school or learning a new skill. How do you teach a person patience? Give them a child, a little young one, screaming toddler, right? You'll learn patience and you'll lose your mind and then you'll learn patience again. And eventually patience is something that you learn how to be able to become and to be able to embrace it. So in this chakra, we have a very complex expression of both what the body goes through as far as the somatic, the cortisol levels, the thyroid levels, all of the glands, all the body parts doing all the things, and they all have a voice. Within Chinese medicine, the 5 solid organs were all given emotions for us to be able to express. The lungs ended up with sadness, grief, and melancholy. The heart has joy, and by extension, love. So we've got joy and lack of joy in a nice little box here. The liver holds on to the emotion of anger. And in that expression of anger, we all know the stereotype of an angry drunk. Well, the drunk doesn't get angry because of the alcohol. The alcohol is what removes the filter. And so what comes pouring out is the anger that's already being stored by the liver. The liver doesn't like stagnation. It gets very frustrated with it very quickly. And that's why we have a shouting voice, because it's physically sitting right underneath the diaphragm. And last time you experienced the emotion of anger, you didn't want to be touched. But the diaphragm has to move so that we can breathe. And so the liver gets really grumpy really quickly when we're in the expression of anger, because the diaphragm says, I need you to move out of the way right now, because I have to breathe. And so we get a shouting voice as it pushes back. Other emotions, we end up with pensiveness, worry, and overthinking that end up being upon the spleen-pancreas mix. Right? The kidneys are the last of the solid organs within the body from Chinese medicine, and they actually hold on to the emotion of fear. Right? I think that one makes plenty of sense because we have the adrenal glands sit on top of the kidneys like a little hat. And if you had a hat that was on fire right now, you couldn't do your job. Adrenal glands fire when we get into a space of fear. Cortisol release. Kidneys can't do their job. Right? The pancreas, the spleen, they actually end up with this overthinking, and it makes sense even from a Western perspective, simply because the mind is the largest user of glucose in the body. So we're having to regulate the blood sugars and make sure that it has everything that it needs, especially in our society that's addicted to being stuck between our ears. So it doesn't matter which emotion is there, they all have to come through this filter point, right? Whether anger is expressed with yelling or anger is expressed with crying, right? Or it's rage, right? The sadness, the grief, the joy, right? The times that we're worried and anxious, fearful, right? All of those come through this throat chakra, and it's an incredibly complex expression of what it is to be in a human body. So today, as part of the meditation that we're doing and the channeling around the throat chakra, we're going to open that up. This may break your filter for a little bit, so I am giving a bit of a warning, right? The things that you find yourself saying within the next 24 hours is just going to be a recalibration of your throat chakra. So if you have a potentially conflict-ridden conversation coming up, maybe put this video on pause. Come back when you have a day to be with yourself. Okay? Take a deep breath, swallow, right? Feel everything down in that space. This is part of what we are. Right? It's part of how we communicate with the world. And a lot of us have this bracing for impact. There's this teeny tiny little thin muscle that never makes it on any of the muscle charts. It's called the platysmus. And it goes from the collarbones up to the bottom of the jaw. It allows that motion, pulling up, right? And just that little bit of pressure of bracing for impact in our chaotic world is enough to strangle the thyroid and make sure it's not getting enough blood with water. Right? Also make sure that the voice is strangulated in some way. Right? That we can't fully speak what's actually there for us, both to others and to ourselves. So then the channelings to be able to open this up allow us to speak with our truest, authentic self, hooking into the heart where the light from our soul comes in and being able to speak what's truly there for us. Not offensively, not telling somebody that we know what's right and they know what's wrong. It's speaking our truth and allowing others to do the same. Humanity finally having the conversations we're told we're not supposed to have. To be able to connect and communicate in ways, whether we agree with the person on the other side of the table or not. All right. I can feel my larynx shifting already. I can feel the light language building. So let's get into breathing. Right. One hand goes on the heart, the other one, the thumb goes on the umbilicus, and rest the palm down on the lower abdomen. Just gently the thumb and the umbilicus, no pressure, just a rest. Right. And we're going to do the puff method for breathing. So we're going to breathe in, the puff, hold, breathe out, the puff, and hold. Breathe in, the puff, and hold. Breathe out, the puff, and hold. Last one. Breathe in, the puff, and hold. Keep breathing as you need to. Samurakoto siritita ramoho irara katamoroko siri siritata tatara katamoko dai siriti sharataramokai tirira haina kamohoto kosatata Kae morokoto moroko so moroko tishine tairara moho da katire kara mokoto setike sakamoko taire ne tatana. Tatana da tomoroko so tokisiri dara da kamoroko so takaite na nana no moho ko taike ni moroko so la tire na kamoro kaire de kire na kamara kamoroko. Amoro komoro kisara dana na komoro kire na kine na kasana komoro kaisiri sakanda karmara komoro kimara kine na dine na kamara kimara komoro kisara kato moro kasetike katate. Diritarak turko katisrak tokro monokatisra kadekara kromoro kososri de rasnitra mo traki sara kamaro koterina tateta. Ramoro tomoro serata tomo tarara mo sarate shineta kamoto kaisera takamo taisera tamosa taiketar mukaitete mukaiti de mo tarmoro taide na mo na ne na mo ene da kaniara na mo ne na kaseni na tarmoko ora tutinstanata mo the more siri arara tramoko to mo eri tramo kata shini takamo to komo tai tri sinira tramoko ta tita titira tramoko te siriti sinir moro kara maraga di gari gari moro ko sera kara moro gari gari mari ra sina maraga la maraga meni gari mari gari amaste kita tak tata tata tramoko to sora take sene to mo tara kamoro tai sene te kamore ra moro ko to sora to ko Tamara 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 koto komoro koto kosere teke shina takamo ho teke chase rama toko mo toko. Swallow. Breathe. The puff. Hold. Breathe out. With a puff. Whoop. Hold. Breathe. The puff. Hold the cara margaris and morocco casera morocco sina the mohu. Ho. Is it a morocco de morigaris and morocco no motogaras and mokataka? Carecre morocco to caserete, the morocco to morocco serata morocco to morocco to caserata casina mo, Deramargo, Deramargo, the mat to get a day. Tigiri Ramoroco to Costa Takasha Katamakota, Cherekatamaide, Kiramoroco to Costa, Chikimarki, Chikamoko Kota day. The Daite, Ramoko Taramara Casaracamoho Sarate Shinina, Taramoko Taisha, Tagiana, Taramoko Taitare, Karamo Sarata Ramoroco Taisana, yes, Natakamota Kaitete, Karina Morocco Taramo, Taratarun, yes, in the Moroca, Saratiramoka, Taramoroco Taisaratina, Taraba, Karatra Morocco, Sarata Shanamoko Taishini, Termu, I tiri Morocco Tamori, Mati, get a Morocco, get Did I did Morocco, Sarata Morocco, Serata, Morocco, Seriti, ya, do water, Morocco, Taiterate. The Taiter Morocco, Seriti, Morocco, Rolo, Saraka, Morocco, Taikiri, Kiti, Shinakatamoko. Opening, being gentle, finding our authentic voice, Karanamoko Taiseriti. Kamoroko Taitera Moko Taiserita Kaisha Tamoko Tairi, removing the judgment, Kamata Morocco Tai, Kanata Moko, replacing the judgment with curiosity. Kushini no Morohoto Korokatsini Nataramokaiteri, Sinakamori Sinataramokaiteri today. Why did I allow myself to lose my voice? Kamoroko Taiserite Kaishe. How can I be more gentle and loving with me? Karakara Morokoto Saratishini and with others. Karamata Kinamokoto Sarate. Which frequency do I choose to radiate with? Compassion, patience. Grace, forgiveness. Amorogo, Kamoro, Serete Shena Takamoto, Kai, Kishinata Mohoi, Tekaite, Moho Takata. Love, Kamarata Romoro Saraka Shinira, Nodo, Serati, Shinatakumoho, Taitike, Cheramoko, Taitinemata. And on top of all of them is authenticity. Kisira Taramoko Toromora Kasarate Shinira Taramohoi Te Shenakaite Mohota. Mohaite Geshiniti, Teramokaite, Shinakata Mokota, Namotata. Moitata Sinatamoto, Gasinatamota. Motata Teramoko, Sati, Shini Teramokaite, Mokaite Kerakomokoto Mohosarite. Kaiserat Namokoto Romoro Kosata, Ninata Moto Sate. Da te ramoroko sarate, tomoho, tahamo tomotai. Mohaire, samora te ramoko, sere de sere tomoko, sere tata. Setata ramoroko, taramoko, sa asia, mo, tachi, nati mokoto. Kamoroko tai seretako. Thank you for joining, my friends. Kamoroko seretakamo. Keep breathing. Kamarakata mokoto, swallow. And yishinato moroko tai sereteishi na mokai teriti. Relax your throat. Kamoto atakate. Kishinataramoko. Allow the larynx to file where it wants to be. Kamarakata, not tight, not held, not strangled into one certain way of being, but relaxed into an expression of who it actually wants to be. How it shows up as his authentic self. This is part of our entire journey through the chakras. Who are you? And how do you choose to vibrationally show up? Part of this is the language that we use with ourselves and with others. Kamaroko saratako moho siriri sharatako moro kataramo kaite shinataramo kaite rinataramo kaite te. Taitai shinitako taitara moro taishini natakamo hoitara katamohota. Mohota ki sharakatamo kota taramo kai siriti shanatamo ratamo taitamo roko taitarata. Thank you, my friends. Breathe. Puff. Hold. Release. Puff. Hold. Be gentle with yourself as you move through this world. Be mindful of the words that you say, both to others and to yourself. You deserve your love and affection more than any being in this universe. Show up for you, and the world starts to change. Until next time, illuminate brilliantly. Kai shara katamoko tai shara te shana takumoho tai te romo kai te sinete data.